So everybody knows about it. So now, since everybody knows about it, it's going to last for a while. And then they get it away. We're still supposed to be on the authoritarian rules. I'm just trying to think what's in this.
Islam Morris.
Peace, but it couldn't take the whole thing.
Peace, Morris. Let's rise. Face the east, 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace. Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah, my protector.
My guide.
My guide.
And my salvation.
And my salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
By day.
Through his holy prophet.
Through his holy prophet.
Noble Drew Ali. Islam. Prophet warns all Muslim governors ordered to read proclamation at each meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical, agitating speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Oh, hey, Kiba. We switched up downstairs a little bit. Just give them a reminder with their food, because there's some couches down there and stuff now. No, they could go down there, just that they not necessarily.
Christopher Maximus.
Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet, or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive the reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their cardin button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet, Noble Drew Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Noble Drew Ali. Islam. To be proclaimed in every meeting. I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people of our side of the nation that claim that I was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance, and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being it. It has been proven by my works which I have performed in the past few years. Prophet Noble Drew Ali. To the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Islam, this is the instruction from your prophet Noble Drew Ali. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed, that you will be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is not on, but the weak can comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I am Noble Drew Ali. And that is why many hearts have been turned to stone. Many have eyes to see but cannot see, ears to hear but cannot hear, lest they will be confounded of their sins. These are trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving. And they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, You fear not what you hear or see, but will sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your profit. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest. The ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah would bless you for your good work. Peace, your divine prophet, Noble Juali. Islam. We got email sent with regard to this idea of what Moors are doing is some type of fraudulent position or whatever, and they used one of the Moors who used to be in this temple as the scapegoat to pretty much throw everything we're doing, or attempt to throw everything we're doing, under the bus. You could look up Canaanland. Canadian Legal Information Institute. Canadian Legal Information Institute.
So to get this right, you're saying that someone has used one of a more that has come through here, has used that more as
No, Canaanland has used that Moor's activity,
right,
to put it under jurisdiction of sovereign citizen and whatever else.
so-called like sort of St. Mary's in Alberta.
Right, yeah. Nanya.
So this is the same thing.
Yeah, same thing, but now this is here now.
Who's the more that we're talking about?
Captain.
Oh.
The Canadian Legal Information Institute is a non-profit organization created and funded by the Federation of Law Societies of Canada on behalf of its 14 member societies. Canaanland is a member of the Free Access to Law movement, which includes the primary stakeholders involved in free, open public publications of law throughout the world. So this is also an avenue for Moors to practice your writ writing or whatever like that, and you wanna, just slap some people with some truth and facts and law, and to correct their misconceptions of what it is that we're about. These are the people out here who have their little database, and they're making it appear as if Moors are on some sovereign citizen, whatever. You got something to tell you?
No, sir, I want to stop.
Oh.
So Kennedy, I'm coming for you.
Yeah. Canaanland offers free public access to over 2.4 million documents across more than 300 case law and legislative databases. It is used by lawyers, legal professionals, and the general public, with usage averaging over 30,000 visits per day. The case law database is reportedly growing at a rate of approximately 120,000 new cases each year, 20% of which are historic cases, which are included to enrich existing databases. So they had Koski Minsky, which is a law office or whatever. Koski Minsky. Access to justice is a hot button issue that has received numerous headlines as well as extensive comments from the bench. It is a pillar of any just judicial system. With that said, however, this basic right is often abused as parties routinely commence frivolous, vexatious, and abusive proceedings. These proceedings slow the whole legal system to a crawl and force innocent parties to expend enormous sums of money trying to deal with baseless claims. The cost, time, and waste is compounded further when dealing with vexatious litigants who every opportunity to abuse the process of the court. Use the word vexatious liberally to include those whose conduct is abusive and not just those who have been formally found by the court to be vexatious litigants. Right, so that's one that you could add to when you're writing stuff to them, that throw vexatious in there when they bring their claims against you, or they try to bring whatever claims against you. In order to combat the worst of these proceedings, last summer, Rule 2.1 was enacted. Rule 2.1 allows the court on its own initiative to say or dismiss a proceeding which appears on its face to be frivolous, vexatious, or otherwise an abuse of process. Practically speaking, Rule 2.1 allows a party to write to the regional senior justice requesting a review of a particular proceeding on the basis it offends the rules and or the law to such a degree that there is no chance of success and accordingly ought to be struck. If the court finds this to be the case, the offending party has the ability to make submissions in writing as to why the proceeding should not be stayed or dismissed. The court will then render a decision. This streamlined process is far quicker and more cost-effective than the traditional route of bringing a motion pursuant to Rule 2101. By proceeding similarly in writing, Rule 2.1 avoids the pitfall inherent in Rule 21, motion, which provides a vexatious litigant further opportunity to abuse the process of the court. While this is an enormous amount of power for the court to wield, it is only meant to be invoked in the clearest of cases.
It's interesting that this they brought in a new rule to counter what they call vexatious things, but I think on the bright side, they mentioned that it's a way to keep the process smoothly going.
Right. Which obviously means that the vexatious litigant people are stopping up the stuff that they're trying to do, which, like we know, their position is finances and that's all they want. If they're not getting any finance, they're not hearing anything. Go ahead, Mark.
From the same side, when our straw is supposedly charged with whatever, we can enact the same rule. Or we can reference that same rule.
Right.
When they talk about doing things, doing it in writing, and that any party can be the one to enact the rule against any other party that's the vexation causer or whatever. So this would be one to kind of add to the list of statutes that you can reference for that would be beneficial. And then it's basically, because what they're saying is basically, if you think that it's not even worth having a case, write us, let us know, we'll review it and we'll let you know.
All right, so again, that's the regional senior justice. So in whatever jurisdiction that you're in, there's a senior justice that deals with these particular challenges, with regard to this rule 2.1. By way of example, we assisted a client with one such case in Captain Nino King James L. Bay, aka Jamie Howe versus Magnum Opus. It is in this matter, our client, the defendant, was the builder owner of a housing subdivision. The plaintiff was an adherent of Moorish law, members of which have been found by the courts to be found of the courts to be
Organized pseudo. OP. Organized pseudo.
CA. Organized pseudo-legal commercial arguments. Organized pseudo-legal commercial arguments. OPCA litigants have previously been found to abuse the court procedures and have been found to be vexatious litigants in courts across Canada. The plaintiff viewed one house in our client's subdivision on the open market, but never made an offer to purchase the home. Nonetheless, utilizing principles of Moorish law, the plaintiff attempted to assert ownership of the house pursuant to an alleged verbal contract. He attended at the properties numerous times, posted various Moorish law ownership permits to the front of the door of the home, attempting to slander title by attending the land registry office, asking them to transfer title to his name. Attended unannounced at our offices and engaged in other vexatious conduct. The plaintiff also issued a statement of claim seeking ownership of the property pursuant to a verbal contract and various Moorish law principles which have no force in Canada. Upon review, the statement of claim failed to disclose a reasonable cause of action and relied on principles unknown to Ontario law. As a result, our firm wrote the regional senior justice and requested the court institute a Rule 2.1 review. Ultimately, the plaintiff's action was dismissed pursuant to Rule 2.1.
What's Rule 2.1?
So civil procedure, Rule 2.1, you found it there? Yeah, you could
Rule
put that.
2.1 was enacted. Rule 2.1 allows the court on its own initiative to stay or dismiss a proceeding which appears on its face to be frivolous, vexatious, or otherwise an abuse of process.
But if that's what it is, I don't understand why would a court even decide to dismiss it then?
Well, they're dismissing it on those grounds, that it's vexatious or frivolous or whatever, just so that they don't have to deal with it. But they're not violating anything because they're using their created law or code or whatever in order to dismiss it. They're not dismissing it on the grounds that something's unconstitutional or the judge made a decision or something. They're dismissing strictly on, in this case, they're saying they're dealing with Moorish law. Okay, dismiss it. We don't want to hear nothing that they're saying.
Because when you look at the term vexation, like
You have it. You want to look it up? Oh, you got it there?
Like, it means annoying. It means, like it's just, yeah, we can look it up. But when I was looking it up, I was just laughing, because it's like, really, even if he was whatever he was doing, he was doing dirty, right? And it's just maybe what he was saying, there's some points in there that are fact, right? But they're saying, they're just saying, trying to use that Moorish science, trying to say that it's just vexatious, which is like totally like.
Well, from their perspective, though, it would be, right? So you're not wrong in what you're saying. This is from my perspective.
Yeah, when you read the article and see what the attempt is that they're trying to make, I would agree.
I got a non-dictionary definition
For vexatious?
for vexation.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, non-dictionary.org What is vexatious? A proceeding is said to be vexatious when the party bringing it is not acting bona fide, but merely wishes to annoy or embarrass his opponent, or when it is not calculated to lead to any particular result. Such a proceeding is often described as frivolous and vexatious, and the court may state it on that ground.
This streamlined process is far quicker and more cost-effective than the traditional route of bringing a motion. No, I read that already. What is most notable is that our client was awarded full indemnity costs against the plaintiff for all costs incurred incidental to the action as contemplated in Section 131 of the Courts of Justice Act. Thanks to the 2.1 process, only minimal costs incurred were directly attributable to the litigation procedures. However, significant costs were incurred resulting from the plaintiff's overall conduct surrounding the litigation as noted above. To our knowledge, this is the first such instance in which the court has awarded costs of this nature in a Rule 2.1 proceeding. In Justice Daly's unreported decision, His Honor held, the plaintiff instituted an action devoid of any merit, clearly for the sole purpose of disrupting the business of the defendants. The conduct of the plaintiff was egregious and caused the moving defendant to incur significant legal costs and disbursements. The plaintiff intentionally and without any right to do so interfered with the good title and ownership of the property in question. The plaintiff and persons like him must be deterred in instituting meritless actions, and an award of full indemnity costs is one of the means of doing so.
So,
We were looking for these glasses since last week.
This guy.
so basically, Captain had put together a case against somebody involved with the house.
Mhm.
And
Based on them not going with what his statement of claims and whatever.
So the irony is that in order to defend against him, they put together something that can even further help and assist us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In defending ourselves, because he's trying to offend and he's trying to get something. So they had to defend against him. But we're just trying to defend. We're not really trying to get something from them. Me personally, like, I just want to live my life, leave me alone. So that's the irony of the battlefield. You know what I mean? When you're trying to battle with people, where you're trying to ignore good people and not really help us out. You know, there's going to be the battle of us doing these things, and they're stable. But at the same time, once they make it into statute, you know what I mean? Once they say, okay, this is how we're going to do things now, that's like I said, we can access that now when we defend against ourselves. You know, 2.1, like, you know, just throw it out.
Right.
And then whatever they do doesn't matter. It's just the fact that you already put that 2.1 there. And then once it gets to the courtroom, it's like, you know, obviously status and jurisdiction, but then also the significance of going past 2.1. Like, why did you guys not even just throw this out?
Right.
Explain that, because there's proof and, you know what I mean, evidence that I already sent in something, a writ referencing 2.1.
Mhm.
So you have to explain at that point, because it's their shit, it's their statute, right? So they're gonna have to explain why they went past 2.1. It's important because this, and that.
What are you saying, Omar?
No, I had just been before 10 minutes right up. I just remember this was sort of this is probably a follow-up to his whole situation the first time, if you remember, when he was back over there. And they had gone through that whole incident where he got up on the porch, he'd be talking with the real estate guy.
Yeah.
He actually put his thing in the paper, and then that's when he had that adjudication against him about Moorish law.
Mhm.
Remember that? That was that whole.
Yeah.
So this is obviously now his amended or his refined now. It's still, and it's obvious that they're still on this tax, right?
No, this was from back then. This
Oh,
is
that's
from
what that is?
yeah. This is what that is. Yeah. This is 2015 or something.
Oh,
You wanted to read Vexatious?
Oh yeah.
This is pretty interesting. So Vexatious, last law for division, is without reasonable cause or reasonable or probable cause or excuse. You know, like how you're saying, you know, defense, you say the same thing with them, this was still probable cause, right? Yeah. Vexatious actions. An action requirement 1896 authorizing the High Court to make an order on the application of the Attorney General that a person is shown to be habitually and vexatiously litigious without reasonable ground shall not institute legal proceeding in that or any other court without leave of the High Court judge thereof upon satisfactory proof that such legal proceedings are not an abusive process of the court and that there is a prima facie ground therefore the order when made is published in the Gazette. And then there's vexatious proceeding. That's how you pronounce it, right? Vexatious.
Vexatious, yeah.
Vexatious proceeding. Proceeding instituted maliciously and without probable cause. There are no pictures which is the case law there. Kind of a malicious prosecution, differing principally because based on civil action. When the party bringing proceeding is not acting bona fide and merely wishes to annoy or embarrass his opponent, or when it is not calculated to lead to any practical result. Such a proceeding is often described as frivolous and vexatious, and reportedly stated on that ground. And after that, it says sweet.
did I say that in there?
No.
Yes, I left that up because I was like, this is.
It says sweet.
And
You know, but that goes. I was just thinking like on lines of the frivolous and the whole. Sometimes, you know, when they come to attack us and they want to sue us for just breaking some very, you know, so-called legal statutes and stuff there, and they're just man-made, they could be like, this is a vexatious proceeding.
Yeah.
Frivolous. This is frivolous. What are you doing?
I'm wasting time.
You know, because it says right here, it says, when the party bringing the proceeding is not acting bona fide, right, and barely wishes to not to annoy or embarrass his opponent, you know, like, or when it is not calculated to lead to any practical result, you know, what's practical, you know, look at the practical, right? Well, you gotta look at it from that term, you know, a lot of what they're doing, you know, they're incarcerating a lot of people for, you know, little petty things, right? It's embarrassing for a lot of people, right? The suffering that they have to go through. The whole process is embarrassing. Yeah.
Say the same thing.
Contained, it's embarrassing.
It's something that you're sending to the senior justice. And so before it's like you just be dealing with the regular justice, whatever the assigned justice. And now you're dealing with that person's boss.
Yeah, that's what I mean, right? It's no longer in their hands. It's even though that proceeding still being dealt with them, right?
If it doesn't go to proceeding, right? So if you send your writ, you're dealing with their boss for 1, 2, you still put your status on the record. You can still get into the details of it. It's still have your status. You put together the writ. It's all one document. So nothing in the writ goes before or after anything else in the writ. It's just one writ in time, right? If you walk into a so-called courtroom, everything is based on time. If you default in the beginning, it's gonna make it that harder for you to come back and end. You have to put your status on the record. If it's a writ, it's one document. So you write it exactly how you need to, and then you let them know 2.1, you reference 2.1, you also have your status there, your North American rate, and you can still get into the details of, oh, this is what happened and this is what really happened. And so it's privileged for us to even bring it forward.
Right.
Justice was gonna have that individual, so it goes to a particular individual. And they, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's something that they thought they had to do, but now that they've done it,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yes,
So that's-
Yeah.
Wow.
So, that's good one. Straight. Right, so Canley, what's up, Adam? Right. Good, good. Right, so yeah, they're downstairs. Canley had put out if you go on the Canley site, they have different documents on there. So there's a PDF they have up there called Organized Pseudo-Legal Commercial Arguments as Magic and Ceremony. Organized Pseudo-Legal Commercial Arguments as Magic and Ceremony by Donald Netolitsky. Netolitzky. This article discusses ways in which organized pseudo-legal commercial arguments litigants use pseudo-legal concepts, techniques, and procedures before the courts. The author begins by looking at where OPCA legal arguments originate and the historical sources where these arguments find grounding, while assessing the flaws in such. A thorough analysis is then conducted into some of the tactics used by the OPCA litigants in order to evade legal consequences, including a survey of global case law where these arguments have been brought before the courts. The article culminates with an analysis of the implications of the use of pseudo law by OPCA litigants and how tactics permeate through OPCA movements, while looking for solutions in dealing with the OPCA litigants as they move through the courts. I know the Morris had some sessions this last week, well, Monday and Tuesday, North? Monday and Tuesday? You guys had, and it was, did they try any of these stuff? Pseudo legal or whatever? Or sovereign citizen or anything? Okay.
That was a new one.
Was that New Market? Okay.
You still didn't have the disclosure?
No, I got disclosure. On Tuesday.
Introduction. Government, law enforcement, and courts in many Commonwealth countries now regularly encounter persons who claim extraordinary authority and immunity. While these claims are purportedly expressions of legal rights and principles, this quote-unquote law is not drawn from recognized sources. Instead, these are an alternative, different set of rules that mimic or ape the structure of language of conventional law. This variant law is a pseudo-law. It superficially appears to be law or related to law, but is otherwise spurious. This
I remember too, I think in the disclosure it said, like, I had like more like quotations.
Quotes or whatever?
And it said sovereign citizen.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Right, so on any instance of them either using this OPCA or sovereign citizen or quote unquote Thunder Moorish or whatever like that, it's things that to address when you're dealing with them, so that they know that, okay, well, you're not in that category, because they're there are people on our side of the nation who thought this was a joke and unreal or whatever that they're going to put over there. You know what I mean? But then they're just going to try to paint everybody as that, opposed to just dealing with those individuals like that. You know what I mean? So like with the article on the 2.1 thing, they specify the individual, but they're galvanizing him under quote unquote Moorish law. Which, if we go to Zodiac Constitution, that's Moorish law, and they're not talking about that in there when they say Moorish law. So where is it that they're going when they say the quote unquote? Like, what are you actually calling more? Like, what? Give us the guidelines of what qualifies as this quote unquote Moorish law. Because we could say divine constitution and bylaws is Moorish law, but they're not talking about that in there. They're not talking about Zodiac Constitution. They're not talking about United States Republic Constitution. They're strictly dealing with these processes that people who call themselves Moors do, that is causing the court to be, what do they say, a slow down process, because now they have to deal with these things. But if the arguments being made were that illegitimate, it wouldn't slow down the process of the court. They'll just steamroll whatever you bring. So there has to be something. There has to be something in these arguments. Has to be something in these arguments that is of a de jure right character, and we know it's because of the nationality aspect. But as soon as you start talking nationality, then now these people are Commonwealth countries now. Now they don't have that position of authority that they claim that they've had. Because just for the simple fact that nationality is brought up, and the people who are adjudicating against us more than likely are diverse nationality to us. So they really don't have the say that they have, which is the whole thing of the court being held up or whatever, because like they say, they have their website there where they're going to put out these case law, and once you put it out there, now everything's out there. It's not like they can hide things or whatever. They have to manipulate things in order to make themselves look real or legitimate or whatever. This phenomenon goes under different names in various jurisdictions. In the United States, these ideas were incubated in a succession of right-wing, often racist and predominantly rural political groups, the Posse Comitatus, Christian identity churches, tax protesters, militias, and sovereign citizen movements. Unexpectedly, after 2000, much of the same set of pseudo-law translocated to ideological alien environments, including urban states' Black populations who self-identify as Moor or Aboriginal peoples and claim immunity or special status on the basis of race, and Free Man on the Land, a collection of Canadian political leftists, green, anti-globalization, marijuana advocacy, and anti-government social activists who opt out of government control.
Say government control?
Yeah.
Then right there, what's a government's not supposed to control anything.
Right.
That's not part of the definition of government. And as soon as you say control, that's not government. Exactly. So that's a Freudian slip on their part. Like they're telling you, yeah, control. We want to control you. And they're not even hiding government control.
which is why. Yeah.
What do you mean government control? What do you mean it shouldn't be
used in that context.
Exactly.
Like, American legal academics have been writing about pseudo-law and its implications for decades, largely in the context of these ideas as risk factors. In Canada, pseudo-law only recently became a subject of systematic investigation and commentary. though it has a long history in this country. A major step was an Alberta Court of the Queen's Bench judgment, Meads versus Meads, which reviewed close to 150 decisions that involved pseudo-law, organized and classified pseudo-legal concepts, described communities that host pseudo-law, and identified pseudo-law promoters or gurus. These schemes were grouped under a single name, organized pseudo-legal commercial arguments. Other US and German court decisions have concluded similar broad surveys of their sovereign citizen Moorish and Reichsbürger phenomenon. Now in the footnotes, they say when they mention Moorish, their footnotes, they go to United States versus Phillips and Marrakesh Society versus New Jersey State Police, which is the Moors in Court video that has 1 million views right now. Right, so them saying Moorish, that's where they're going as their reference point, because they already know that New Jersey railroaded those people, right? Under the same thing of pseudo-legal, whatever like that. You guys can't say that and whatever, right? Post-Meads appreciation of the social significance and illegal consequences of pseudo-law has led to academic investigation, a growing collection of highly detailed and responsive case law, and increased public awareness of the curious fact that there exist people who claim to operate under a different and sometimes very different set of rules. Reviews of OPCA history, activities, and suggested responses have been published in Canada. New Zealand and the Republic of Ireland. Mental health professionals have concluded that OPCA affiliation does not represent disordered thought, but instead is a distinct form of a typical political belief reinforced in marginal communities. Social scientists have investigated what factors foster OPCA beliefs and the functional parallels between OPCA communities and religious cults. OPCA beliefs are a risk in indicium, since OPCA gurus not only teach that the individuals have a right to retaliate against uncooperative state law enforcement and court actors, but also because the populations which host these ideas generally identify government as an enemy, even an evil enemy, and therefore a target for justified retaliation and discipline.
So they're saying that that's what we want to do to them?
Yeah, they're saying that as far as people who bring up, anybody who goes into court and doesn't say, my name is whatever, plead guilty or innocent, and then go through the motions of what the court's up, they're pseudo-legal more than likely, or they're some religious cult, or they're, you know what I mean, anti or sovereign citizen or free man of land, and then they have their own rules that deal with those people over here. Because they should just be like everybody else, go in there, plead, and make an argument. Well, they're putting Moors under it, but it's based on activities of ones who they consider their activity this. So they wouldn't have, for example, they wouldn't bring up Moors who beat their cases.
Yeah.
The nature.
Like they wouldn't even bring them up.
Yeah.
They're not even part of the argument, which is kind of the same argument. So why wouldn't you put whoever on it? Oh, well, because prior to all this, Moors were actually exercising this kind of way and really shutting down courts and all that. And really having, you know, judges recuse themselves from the bench and you know, setting certain precedent that would make it appear like, oh, this thing actually works. You could actually get out of taxes and get out of paying tickets and get out of, whatever, issue that the court is trying to bring against you. Which, once you deal with it from a law perspective, yeah, there is that. That's the whole point of it. That, yeah, we're not in your jurisdiction like that for you to railroad us or to do whatever it is that you would do to the average Joe to us. We don't qualify under that, right? So this is their loophole, so that they have to deal with, or we have to deal with them on their grounds, not on the rule of law grounds, right? Through OPCA schemes, though OPCA schemes have emerged in a wide variety, most of legal disputes OPCA litigants is clustered in are time, location, and subject. Most reported Canadian judgments involve OPCA arguments to avoid income tax or evade criminal sanction for not paying income tax, to subvert the legal basis for debts or to pay debt with money for nothing schemes, to get out of jail free card by criminal accused or offenders, or in offensive lawsuits where OPCA litigants on a vexatious and abusive advance spurious claims against other parties. These objectives are consistent with the pattern that pseudo-law has thus far been largely contained in communities that are in conflict with or hostile to government and corporate authority. These groups typically hold profoundly conspiratorial beliefs concerning the nature and illegitimacy of conventional authorities and are clearly attracted to the idea of another true hidden law that can be accessed to escape from or retaliate against those who are perceived as enemies or wrongdoers.
They said another true hidden law.
Another true hidden law, yeah. Yeah. Right.
These guys are too honest though.
Yeah, they're putting themselves under there too. Right? So yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Any questions, comments? This article has a different focus from prior investigations. It excavates the foundation of pseudo-legal concepts, techniques, and procedures. OPCA pseudo-law confuses legal professionals. For example, Commonwealth judgments which respond to OPCA concepts often describe these ideas as impenetrable, gibberish, or nonsense, unintelligible and incomprehensible at best, and at worst as complete nonsense and a waste of this court's resources and time. A waste of court, legal, and judicial resources attempting to sift through the quagmire, unintelligible and indecipherable. The defense and counterclaim were comprised of random, almost incomprehensible statements, proportions, quotations, arguments, and references to other material that appeared to have been lifted from other documents and randomly pasted into the pleading. Lawyers describe OPCA documents as gibberish, word salad, incomprehensible, and gobbledygook.
Word salad?
Where's the gobbledygook?
Wait, say that one more time.
Lawyer.
Impenetrable, indecipherable.
Yeah.
Like, seriously?
Lawyers describe OPCA documents as gibberish, word salad, incomprehensible, and gobbledygook. Other gobbledygook. 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 Other judgments have at least heard literary echoes hidden inside the unusual language found in OPCA documents. To Lewis Carroll's invented word poem, Jabberwocky, and the stream of consciousness writing of Jack Kerouac. Kerouac. So the documents that they receive, they're looking at it like anything that they receive, this is what it is. Once it's not emotion that they whatever, once it's not something that they normally see, they're classifying it under this part.
What is the OPEC something sound for it?
Organized pseudo-legal commercial arguments. Yeah. But why are OPCA concepts, documents, and arguments gobbledygook? And perhaps as importantly, are they always gobbledygook? This is the subject of this investigation. This analysis cannot be comprehensive due to the broad scope and variety of known OPCA litigation and the many variations that exist for common OPCA motifs and concepts. Instead, this article asks whether pseudo-law has a scheme. This is a position advanced by U.S. legal scholar Susan P. Koniak, K-O-N-I-A-K, who warns the legal establishment that voices of the sovereign citizen world are building their own distinct and separate schema of law. In certain senses, Koniak is correct, but the answer, as it often is not so simple. Some OPCA misconceptions can be distilled into a discrete legal error. In those instances, pseudo-law takes an alternative path from the conventional law and thus reaches a different result. These folks in the law are not always incomprehensible, so much as they are simply wrong, at least from the perspective of conventional authorities and the courts. A court or legal professional can explicitly and clearly respond to this category of pseudo-law. However, some OPCA pseudo-law, other law, is entirely disconnected from mainstream law and represents a something else category of thought, belief, and behavior. Magic is the best analog for other law. Other law has no reasoned foundation. In fact, certain examples have no foundation at all. This does not mean, however, that there are not patterns to pseudo-law, including other law. Understanding these patterns is a potential conduit for a dialogue with those who advance these concepts. Put another way, pseudo-law provides a window into the psyche of OPCA affiliates and their world. As we soon realize, like Dorothy, that I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. Right. Pseudo-law provides a window into the psyche of OPCA affiliates and their world. So this is where it comes in with the language, and then us making sure that we know the language that we have to speak when we're dealing with them. Because as soon as they think you're on some word salad, they're gonna eat you.
Word salad.
Gobbledygook. Gobbledygook. Right? Gobbledygook.
But supposedly they want dialogue with these people.
Yeah.
OPCA people.
Yeah.
That's what we just read. Maybe not them, but right, the article.
But it was one man that coined that, no? OPCA.
Yeah. Yeah. Some pseudo law is clearly based on legal error. Gurus are simply wrong when they teach that it is allegedly a principle of law. An interesting feature common to pseudo legal errors is that OPCA gurus support these misconceptions with references to some kind of genuine legal text or resource. Legal errors emerge from what might appear as a potentially legitimate context. The cornerstone legal error of many OPCA theories is that silence means consent or agreement. Right now, again, they're making reference to sovereign citizen, free man on the land. They're talking about different aspects that have been presented to them that they're going to qualify as, well, yeah, this is BS or whatever, right? But once you start dealing with them on not just exposing what it is that you know to be the legitimate law and how they're violating it, but also by attaching other people to it, that these people are really slandering. These people are really performing libel because they can't paint everybody with a broad brush like that, right? That's direct violations of even with their own charter of rights and all that stuff, discriminating against people for things that have nothing to even do with them.
And then if you look at the legal definition of violence, it includes slander, it includes telling lies about people. So that's violence is a criminal act. So they're actually they're actually committing a crime.
Yeah.
It's not the article, but what the people that are
the people who are pushing that idea. Yeah.
So you said they want dialogue with the people that are talking?
No, the author said that it gives an opportunity for dialogue. But that doesn't, I don't necessarily think that that's the opinion shared by people. These kind of people. And the author is coming from a more neutral standpoint, you know, from what I'm seeing. But yeah, that's a crime, basically.
So he's not a part of that organization?
It doesn't seem like it.
Not necessarily part of the organization, but
what did you say was the cornerstone? This argument or mistake that all these pseudo laws are put apart. Silence is acquiescence.
there we go. Pseudo law as legal error. A cornerstone legal error for many OPCA theories is that silence means consent or agreement.
So every time they accuse and you get rid of something, it's not just because you're doing that because you need to respond when they're accusing you, or it's like saying you're right. They're saying that's not true.
Right. They're saying that it's not, which is why when if we submit a writ to them for whatever, and they don't respond, and then we default them or whatever, they're gonna say that's pseudo legal error because what do you mean we acquiesce because we didn't respond? Well, yeah, that's a law maxim. That's not opinion of the people who are sending paperwork in. That's a maxim in law that once you acquiesce, you're in default. You know what I mean? Well, again, if they haven't been dealing with anything from a legitimate law perspective, then they're going to make up whatever it is that they make up in order to get away from having to deal with certain obligations that they know that they're obligated to. That if something, you know, it's no different than use the example of construction. And 3 weeks prior to construction, they let you know, on this street right here, from September to November, the street's gonna be messed up. And that time comes, and then people still using that street, messing their car up or whatever. They don't have no claim against them because they acquiesced. You didn't say anything. Community didn't come together and say, well, you know what, I don't think you guys should be doing this right now because this is peak time or whatever like that. People's travel or whatever like that. Why are you doing that here? Why don't you do that from 12 midnight to 6 a.m. when nobody's out here? Why are you doing that during the day? During rush hour is when you want to do construction or whatever like that. You know, everybody acquiesce. Right?
You know, notice that he's comparing whatever OPCA people, so-called, are bringing, whatever arguments they're making, he's judging it based on the fact that it's not consistent with conventional law or conventional authorities. Like, he's not really saying that they're wrong in the eyes of actual law. He's just saying they're contrary to conventional law and conventional authorities. You know what I mean? Which is just to say, conventional law, not actual law. Conventional is whatever is going on for now. Exactly. You're not bringing up constitution, anything like that. So yeah, they're defining their box. You know what I mean? That they're in. Which is why it's important to use that 2.1 against anything. Just go to
use it against them too. Yeah.
I mean, go to a senior who has more liability, more responsibility. You know what I mean? And then, you know, bring your constitutional, put all that, like I said, put all that in there and send it to that person. You know, let them know who you are and your status. So what the article is relative to a law or a statute that they passed from last summer that says that they'll dismiss a case if it seems frivolous or vexatious on its face, right? Prima facie. So the process is you send whatever to the senior justice.
Come on, Drew.
And then they'll have the opportunity to just drop it right off the bat. From any party, so it could be prosecutor, it could be plaintiff, it could be defendant, whatever, it doesn't matter. The senior justice of the region. If you send a senior justice of the region, then somebody's trying to bring something against you and tell them, no, it's frivolous, I'm a Moorish American, blah, 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 then it's on them, you know what I mean? It's not on a regular justice, it's on a senior justice now. If they don't dismiss it, then you gotta go through, you actually have to spend, you're gonna go through the case, trial, and then from there, at least you have proof that you send it to them according to their statute 2.1.
Yeah, whoever he is or she is.
Go down to Institute 2.1 and they do it. Basically something that says if there's a frivolous claim or vexatious claim, you can send something to the senior justice. Regional senior justice.
Yeah, you missed the fact that we were going over captain. I don't know if you remember captain.
Yes.
And it's attempt.
They used to come here?
Yeah. And his attempt to try and get property.
Yeah.
They were just going over that whole thing. They were using section 2.0 saying that his attack on them is frivolous.
So it's clear. Now they want all the other stuff in the back.
So
Yeah,
they didn't grant him what he was asking.
Yeah, what they were saying was that his
argument was
his
pseudo.
suits against him and his things against him were frivolous and vexatious. Claiming sort of convention law, all that stuff to claim that what he was doing was wrong. Now, ultimately, what he was doing is not wrong. It is wrong from their perspective, and it's wrong also ethically from our perspective, right? This is what.
Right. And then
go to the seniors and you have your status and that can make things.
Right, but and then again too, like we're talking about with the language too, because from the Moorish mindset perspective, you're claiming land, not property. As soon as you claim property, you void your position, because you should really be claiming your estate, and then now you get the building because it's on your estate, not I want the building, and then okay, well then their claim is that, well then the land's ours then.
Right.
And if the land's ours, then your argument really doesn't have any power, because we're not giving you this house on the grounds that, you know, you put something on it. So that means that it's yours.
Which on a certain level is basically saying like from now on we're drawing a line. If you're incompetent, you're not even getting it.
Or even that.
So if you are competent, then you will be smart enough to know how to keep it moving and keep being able to make your arguments.
Right.
Even with their
But with their thing that they're doing.
authority that they're saying. Because either you'll have it in writing, or if you still want to bring you in, you shouldn't be able to use your words to that level. You know what I mean? So if you are competent, that means that kind of speaks to the definition of competence and incompetence, right? Compete means you can compete. And if you don't even have the tools to compete, they're not going to let you go and still try to compete. They're going to tell you, yo, you're barred, you need to accept it.
Right.
Wait till next year, type of thing, right? Because you can't compete, you're incompetent. That's what they're telling. That's what it really means, right? So we think we have this perception of like skill level, you know, incompetence, but it's not really that. It's really like you're not even like there's something that you're missing. There's things you're missing. Yeah, right. So once you have that, then you already know how to present your arguments. You know what I mean? Despite these new statutes and whatnot.
Right. So just with regard to the OPCA, this is from April 20th, 2015, when I was dealing with CIBC and them taking the debt, put it with lawyers because of me challenging them on are they legitimate, who are they, or whatever like that, right? So after we went to the lawyer came back with, it appears from your communication that unfortunately you have been exposed to an organized pseudo-legal commercial argument in the nature of a sham debt elimination scheme. Such schemes are proliferated over the internet, in seminars, by word of mouth or otherwise. Consumer debtors are led to believe that following such schemes, they can eliminate their debts without paying them. However, the individual concepts advanced by such schemes have been consistently discredited by the court decisions made across Canada. Please refer to the decision of the Alberta Court of the Queen's Bench in Meads versus Meads and many cases citing it. Court decisions may be found online at the Canadian Legal Information Institute website, canley.org. And then the response to them was in a writ of error based on them saying the pseudo-legal whatever. In the attached request to verify settling the account in possession from CIBC, Barbara K.H. Dam stated that the Moorish Divine National Movement is using organized pseudo-legal commercial arguments. With regard to this matter, which has been paid and closed, settlement letter attached. The Ontario Human Rights Code is a provincial law that establishes equal rights, opportunities, and freedom from discrimination. Ontario's human rights system is structured by 3 pillars: Human Rights Tribunal, Human Rights Legal Support Center, Ontario Human Rights Commission. Barbara K. Dam works for KRMC, a foreign European corporation doing business on my ancestral estate, and has violated Ontario Human Rights Code rules of the Law Society of Ontario and the Constitution by discriminating against my ethnic origin, nationality, ancestry, and race. Furthermore, when acting to enforce a statute, it is subsequent amendments to the present date. The judge of the municipal court is acting as an administrative officer and not in a judicial capacity. Courts in administering or enforcing statutes do not act judicially, but merely ministerially. Furthermore, conscious Moorish Americans across our North Continent, America, have been consistent and dedicated in their duties and responsibilities to answer up to the de jure constitutional principles. For example, in this jurisdiction, Ontario Court of Justice, Her Majesty the Queen versus Olaranweju Onibindi Bay. The officer must make a specific request for identification other than driver's licenses. Rosenberg J. wrote for the court at page 43, in my view, the proper interpretation of section 33 requires that the officer must make specific requests for identification other than a driver's license. Until the request for alternative identification has been made and the person has refused to comply, there is no contravention to the subsection. All Mr. Bay's charges were dropped without being libeled, slandered, or having his human rights violated. In exercising my and our unalienable right and our divine birthrights, Moors have been working to take their places in the affairs of men. December 22nd, Rahm Emanuel, Mayor of Chicago, published proclamations affirming Moors as the Aboriginals, listed all the different proclamations. Clearly, your European corporation employees of KRMC, like Barbara K. Dam, are incompetent when it comes to Moorish history and law, based on her continual slander and libel, while acknowledging me as Kudro Adwa El on all our correspondence. KRMC and Barbara K. Dam has also ignored the City Council calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada's report. KRMC employees like Barbara Dam needs immediate abundance of training on the truth and reconciliation between the Dominion of Canada and the Aboriginal Indigenous people of this land, and must stop the libel, lies, propaganda, and slander against our Moorish nationality, since so many other heads of jurisdictions have already acknowledged and recognized the legitimacy of our claims of right being the Aboriginal and Indigenous Moorish Americans. She should also be made to apologize publicly for the disrespect and vile disregard of Moorish nationality while claiming to be a student of law. I am not a sovereign citizen, nor do I ever or have I ever partaked in any such activity of a free man on the land, sovereign citizen, etc., and other labels and brands that do not allude to nationals and national activity. There are extremely potentially dangerous and offensive wording, especially for a law firm and its employees to throw around, because for one, they should know based on passing the bar that law dictionaries, whether Henry Campbell Black's, Bouvier's law dictionaries, or Ballantyne's law dictionaries, define sovereignty and states that sovereignty does not stand alone in one citizen. It is determined by nationality. As lawyers, KRMC employees should know that nationality determines one's political allegiance, meaning the allegiance to your family, of which KRMC has no allegiance to the Indigenous people who are the reason they are not still under the slavery in Europe. See Treaty of Peace and Friendship between the United States and Morocco. As their writings and audacity to slander Moorish nationality and nation prove, they should be aware that the sovereign citizen movement was established by modern Europeans in America, a manifest destiny conquest intent to steal Moorish, Aboriginal, Indigenous inheritance through cheating, extortion, and hiding the truth about Moorish nationality and birthrights. Aboriginal and Indigenous to keep me a ward of the crown and to keep me in perpetual mental servitude. References, the Universal Declaration of Rights, Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and then claiming or attempting to exercise judicial powers in attempting to act as an agent on behalf of another, which has no judicial powers, which constitutes misrepresentation, an attempt at constructive fraud, and any claims of authority made by your agency for them in concert with you, which infringe on the rights of myself or the people, are null and void and supremely unconstitutional. Right.
You wrote this to who?
That was to Law Society, Governor General, and Canley.
And Canada?
Canley,
Canada,
right? Because they were the one, because they were using them, the information that they put out in their defense of, well, why you have to pay and whatever else, right? So after few more different correspondence with them, it went from Ontario legal pseudo whatever to, okay, well, how could you settle this? How could this be resolved or whatever? And when they talk about the whole concept of with discharging debts and all that type of stuff, that's something that the people with the debt have to do. Now, you can't make them discharge something. They're the ones that have to do it. So, for example, they were saying 11 grand or 13 grand or something for the CIBC debt that they wanted to pay. If we don't get all of that, then we're gonna garnish or whatever. Well, how about you guys take 4,500? Okay, fine. And then cancel it out for 4,500. But that was a discharge.
So meaning they're still not receiving any kind of fiat.
Everything's done, and they wiped out 7 grand.
4,500 is just.
That's what they accepted to close out the 11 grand.
But they're accepting that from another party.
No, they accept that from me to them to close it out.
Oh, but you sent them that?
Yeah.
He determined the discharge. He said this is what it's gonna be.
Oh.
They didn't
Because the debt's closed. It's a third party. A third party has it.
Okay.
So because once in the rules of collections, once it goes to a third party, it's a dead debt.
Yeah. So you offered that price
instead of what they were saying, which is 100 a month or whatever like that. What they wanted was They wanted 5,000, 2,500 up front, and then the other 2,500 in payments or something like that. 500 a month for 5 months or whatever. Right. So it's just, offer a counter offer. And the counter offer is 4,500. You can take that now, or you guys get nothing. Okay, well we'll take that.
I would have went lower than that.
Yeah, probably could have, but yeah, right. And then go into the meeting with settling it or whatever. They weren't talking all the legal suit or whatever. They took the 45 like everything's good. Even though months before they were talking about garnish and rid of seizure and stuff like that, sheriff and all that or whatever. But in it being where it was, I know that it's dead. So they're not gonna expense themselves to try to get all that, which probably if they haven't gotten it to this point, they're probably not gonna get it. So they'll pretty much take whatever they could get at this point. And then
the real people didn't get it.
Right.
So they are the secondary one.
Yeah, they're the secondary party. Right. And then also too, remember that once because I said borrow that from somebody, and pay it off. That way, whoever I borrow from now, I get no interest, no court fees or whatever like that. It's just 4,500, opposed to 45 plus whatever if I went got a loan or, you know what I mean, whatever.
How long did it take for you guys to do this counter offer back and forth?
But everything was by mail because they didn't want to deal with me on the phone at all about anything. Everything was by mail. So it was probably about maybe 3 weeks of, you know, them, yeah, like me send them the offer, them send them, we have to go talk to them to see if they'll accept it and whatever like that. Could you send us this and this and this or whatever? Are you gonna have the send them everything? You know what I mean? Then them sending back, okay. They said that they're gonna accept it, but and then there's whatever other stipulations that, you know what I mean, they wanna put in there to make their stuff look good. But I mean, it's and then there's some situations where, like you're saying, you might even hit them up lower, just because it's dead.
I want to do that with,
You know,
tickets on the license.
you know.
I want to get in a car again, but I don't know how to do that.
Gains. So once they once they have some type of adjudication or whatever, and then they have an amount. If that's not paid, then it goes to that next. Then it goes to the collection part of it, where that's when you could bring that up. At that point, right? Once it's in their hands, still they're looking for whatever is there as to close it out. You know, and then for it to even get to the place where mine was, they had canceled the debt that I had, right? Like it wasn't good state. There was no issue with it. It wasn't behind or nothing like that. They called the debt when I sent them the thing challenging them on who they are or whatever. You know, like so the initial so this is what was sent to them that made them say that we're calling in the debt. Like we don't care if your stuff is in good standing. You don't have a credit card anymore. Now you owe whatever was on there. Right? The foreign European corporation that you represent, CIBC, is disguising itself as a bank when in absolute fact, they are a human trafficking corporation occupier. CIBC is an acronym for Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, which is no longer used to keep up the human trafficking deception of that foreign European corporation. Canadians are assumed to be the people who are identified with the country of Canada. This connection may be residential, legal, historical, and/or cultural. Due to your expertise in legalese, you might not know that Canadian is also a corporate identification, and what is unknown to most people living in Canada is that Canada is listed on the United States Security and Exchange Commission as a corporate nation state, with the flag of Canada as its corporate logo and its head office in Washington, D.C. of the United States Corporation, not a de jure nation state of the United States of America Republic. Canadian Confederation was the process by which the colonial inquisitionists, modern Europeans, eschewed Aboriginal Indigenous land under the Trust Dominion of Canada, which was formed in July 1st, 1867. This is a historical fact. And in 1781 Articles of Confederation, Canada acceded to this confederation and joined in the measures of the United States. If Canada had overthrown British rule in the 1780s and joined the United States of America Republic as a sovereign state, the British would have no further holdings of land in North America. However, after the war, the British continued to violate the Treaty of Paris by maintaining forts in the Western Territory of the United States of America Republic. The British controlled the Great Lakes, which bordered the United States of America Republic and Canaanland and the St. Lawrence River, thereby giving them powerful control over trade and the interior of North America. Unfortunately, Canada had no interest in joining the United States Republic and remained a British colony, which establishes the fact that Canada, founded in 1867, is not a sovereign nation state. Each country rests on an imaginary sea. Some have imaginary land. Canada does not have land. It is only water, as it was never formed into a country, just a colony at best. If you look at Section 35 of the Interpretations Act of Canada, it says Canada, for greater certainty, includes the internal waters of Canada and the territorial sea of Canada. Imperial is that which relates to an empire, emperor, or concept of imperialism. Its name originated from the Latin word imperium, defined in Black's Law Dictionary as the right to command, which includes the right to employ the force of the state to enforce the laws. To simplify, imperialism is the policy of extending a country's power and influence through colonization, use of military force, and other means. Vladimir Lenin concluded that competition between empire and the unfettered drive to maximize profit would lead to the wars between the empires themselves, such as the contemporary First World War, as well as continued future military interventions and occupations in the colonies to establish, expand, and exploit less developed markets of the monopolist corporations of empires. Banks, in the commercial sense, are three kinds: one of deposits, one of discount, and one of circulation. The standard set of business laws that regulate financial contracts is called the Uniform Commercial Code. The Uniform Commercial Code has been adopted by most states in the US and Canada corporations. The code itself has 9 separate articles. Each article deals with separate aspects of banking and loans. The UCC better enabled lenders to loan money secured by the borrower's personal property. Originally, the business of banking consisted only in receiving deposits such as bullion, plate, and the like for safekeeping until the depositor should see fit to withdraw for use. Banks lending by creating credit, they create the means of payment out of nothing. Ralph M. Hawtrey, Secretary of the British Treasury. Henry Ford, it is well that the people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. Woodrow Wilson, a great industrial nation is controlled by its system of credit. Our system of credit is concentrated in the hands of a few men. We have come to be one of the worst ruled, one of the most completely controlled and dominated governments in the world. No longer a government of free opinion, no longer a government by conviction and vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and duress of small groups of dominant men. Robert Hemphill, Atlanta Federal Reserve Bank. We are completely dependent on the commercial banks. Someone has to borrow every dollar we have in circulation, cash or credit. If the banks create ample synthetic money, we are prosperous. If not, we starve. We are absolutely without a permanent money system. It is the most important subject intelligent people can investigate and reflect upon. It is so important that our present civilization may collapse unless it becomes widely understood and the defects remedied very soon. Modern Money Mechanics, Workbook, Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, 1975. Neither paper currency nor deposits have value as commodities. Intrinsically, a dollar bill is just a piece of paper. Deposits are merely book entries. Thomas Jefferson, US President. I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. Already, they have raised up a moneyed aristocracy that has set the government at defiance. The issuing power of money should be taken away from the banks and restored to the people with whom the property belongs. Commerce is intercourse by way of trade and traffic between different peoples or states, and the citizens or inhabitants thereof, including not only the purchase, sale, and exchange of commodities, but also the instrumentalities and agencies by which it is promoted, and means, appliances by which it is carried on, and the transportation of goods as well of goods both by land and sea. And again, CC the lawyer people, CC the bank, CC whoever else is involved with it, and they're gonna respond.
So you have a template for all,
Yeah, well, as far as these is the actual writ that was sent to them. So yeah, so this is, you know what I mean, you need an email and and I'll send it to you.
How did you send that to?
This was when I was challenging the CIBC on who they are, and you know, how they give credit, where credit comes from, and whatever like that, and just giving them the history lesson of their own stuff, which made them say, well, no, we're not even playing around with hearing anything that you're saying. We're just gonna cancel this debt right here, give it to these collection people, let them collect it, because we don't want to do it.
Face what you say.
Yeah, right. You know, and then going to them so that they can do the whole pseudo-legal or whatever, because they can't really go in that realm.
because you never tried to challenge it before it went to collections.
Hmm?
Did you try to challenge it before it went?
Yeah, that's what got it to collections, because I challenged it, right? Because my thing was that, oh, they're just gonna send me back something saying whatever, you know what I mean, pay your stuff or whatever like that. But they actually closed the debt, which is what they would say, like if they say martial law or whatever, they say that's what they'll do. Everybody's debt is now owed, and then that's how they're gonna start to implement debtor's prison or whatever, because everybody's in debt out here
There's prison, so you can lock up people who are
for debt. Yeah,
Lock up them where, lock them up where.
whatever jurisdiction that they create to do that. Yeah.
When it says, like, what would be the Bank of Canada?
What would be the Bank of Canada?
Same bank that says Bank of Canada at the bottom of the birth certificate.
Mhm.
What bank specifically is
That would have been the first bank,
It's not RBC.
That's the
Royal Bank.
branded bank, I guess.
And I mean, Scotia, RBC, CIBC, TD. Like for example, Toronto Dominion Bank is in the States too. Why is that there? If Toronto is here, like why is that over there? You know what I mean? Right? Scotia Bank, this ain't Scotia over here. Scotia's over there. You know?
Scotia's in Jamaica.
Right? Peace, how you doing? The brother at the back has your thing for you. Yeah. All right. All right. Yo, Ted, just witness that from the back.
So if they come up first and say you're acting pseudo, that's up to you to prove otherwise?
Yeah, that's what should be done. But not just that, also challenge whatever claim it is that in the same document. And then, huh? Business with? No. They wouldn't want to do business after that. If they want to, then hey, all right, you know, let's see. But probably not. Probably not. Yeah.
So anytime they call you pseudo, right, does that go back to Chief Justice Rook definition that he coined OPCA?
OPCA, yeah. If they say pseudo sovereign citizen, like any of the things other than Moorish American and we're Aboriginal Indigenous, they're trying to do the OPCA.
But that goes to that Mead versus Mead case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Mead was European guy?
Yeah. That was doing the whole, you know, sovereign citizen, whatever. Yeah, free man on.
How did we get lumped into that?
Because of Moors who took that as a way to do stuff, but then now they're doing it with Bay and L or whatever.
That doesn't make sense.
Tarnishing.
I know, but you don't, right? They don't do that the other way. They don't just lump everybody into a group of one offender.
Right.
Right.
But and that's how you know that. Yeah. Right. Yeah. She been going, you know, like been going. That's her game right now. Going hard. Yeah, rolling chair. She push it back up, and then you just see her go by. Then she push it back up.
So anyone that accuses you really of being pseudo, they're kind of like discriminating.
Yeah.
Kind of, but they are.
Yeah, they're discriminating. They're slandering, libel, defaming character.
And I get sorted from Human Rights Commission.
You could bring them up when as one of your CC parties, but then remember the human rights commission is based on human rights code, which is law, which is why they send people there.
Which is not law.
Yeah, because it's a code. You know, it's no different than the independent review of the police complaint or whatever. You know what I mean? That's a body of the police people that you're going to complain to the police people that police people violated, and they're always going to come back. No, we don't think that this is really under the, you know what I mean? Right? Yeah, Mark.
Remember too, that technically as a Moor, right, descriptively you are a free man on the land. As a Moor, you're free. You're a man, you're a man, and you're not in the waters, corporate waters, you're on the land. But a European can't be free on the land, so right away it's fraud for them. When you're confident, you can be able to let them know. You know what I mean? I've told them before, like, I'm not part of that organization, but I am a free man on the land. You shouldn't even really ask me that. You should know from when you look at me, I'm a free man on the land. But I'm not part of that organization.
No one is trying to be free man in the water instead of the land. They're in the water.
They're on the water. They're trying to be on the land. They're not allowed to be on the land.
No.
So their own people are telling them, you're not allowed to be on the land. What do you mean you're trying to be on the land? You can't be on the land.
Yeah.
You're European, you can come on the boat with us.
Yeah.
Get your ass back on the citizenship. Where are you going? Like, where are you going? Get back on the ship. We're the indigenous, so of course we're on the land.
Yeah.
So no one can call this judge out for like putting us in that group.
Say it again.
Nobody could call this judge out, this justice group guy for saying that.
Yeah, if he's still a judge, he might not even be justice no more. I don't know. I never looked into him, but yeah, or even he might have a practice, or he might have some whatever that he's doing now. You know what I mean? Sending him some risk. Yeah, outside of the court jurisdiction now, he might have his own thing that he's doing. You know what I mean? You know, just right now, I've been reading your stuff there on whatever. You know, you're violating supremely, talking crazy. You know.
So which narrative is of more effect, more on land or freeman and on land?
No, those are two narratives. Just, you have to understand that's something that once you study it and you exercise yourself enough, that's something where you can draw a line based on how they use their language. It's not something to even discuss or bring up. You're a Moorish. We're Moorish American. That's our nationality. That's our identity. That's why I said it's a descriptive thing. If you tell them, if you show them you know what the description means, then right away, if they agree, then they're agreeing to your status. Whichever individual says you are a free man on the land, and you explain to them you're not part of that organization, and you are free, you are a man, and you are on the land, and that person says okay, and they just agree
to your
claim.
So based off of like actual definition of what those words mean.
Who's playing you? I was just
So, like,
coaches.
if you're a woman, you're a free woman on the land.
Exactly.
Right?
There's a Raptors.
Right, so
Later, yo.
you're not part of any group or organization that they try to say that okay, this cat fits in this category. Right? But by definition, yeah, you're a man. And if you're indigenous, you're supposed to be free on your land. So these guys, please, Mark. Yeah. There.
Yeah?
Yeah. You drink.
It's a crime around these.
The soil? Oh, you can't leave that land around.
They try to put you in a category, right? And say, okay, you're part of the sovereignty movement or free land, or you're a sovereignty citizen or free man of the land movement or whatnot. But those are like groups and organizations that are set up. But by definition, true definition, if you're Aboriginal indigenous, you're a Moor, that's exactly what you are. You're in there. As an individual, no, not even a part of it, being any group or anything like that.
But the whole point of them doing that is try to get you in their jurisdiction. So you know, so you can't have an argument as to why I should pay or why I should whatever. You know?
There's individuals who are part of those groups, and there's a stigma with certain things, like they actually do certain things. So now they want to try to associate us with that or put us with that so they could label us and say, okay, you guys are radical, you guys are fanatic, you guys shoot policy enforcers on the highway and those types of things, right? Because a lot of those groups, that's what they're about. Like, yo, so it's my land, I'm a patriot, and this is what I'm about, and you can't tell me nothing. And I have my right to bear arms and do this and do that, right? So some of the same concepts and principles apply to the Moorish paradigm, which they adopted from it. So then now they're trying to like reverse it and put Moors in that category and say, okay, you guys are this, you're that. So now they can try to deal with us with more aggression and whatnot, right? Because their own people are moving like, and they know what the definitions mean. But now it's like, okay, this is a sovereign citizen group. This is what they do.
But they know those people who are claiming to be that are not really sovereign anyway.
So if we're gonna say sovereign citizen, that term, it's like more like you say vexatious. Not vexatious, right? I think that is vexatious.
Yeah.
You can be sovereign and citizen at the same time.
Yeah, the two.
Vexatious.
Right, so people have this thing of thinking that the sovereignty is on the individual, right? The sovereignty comes from the nation. The nation is sovereign, and because we're part of the nation, we have sovereignty. But we don't just have sovereignty because we're Moors. We have sovereignty because we're part of the Moorish nation, which is sovereign. Right? That nation is part of an empire. That empire got taken over, and the people who took it over are now trying to say that we're not part of that. They're the real sovereigns or whatever like that. And then these people over here, they're sovereign citizens because they're trying to exercise certain rights that they can't do without even calling themselves out as being a fraud because they're not even sovereign. British Empire is not sovereign like that. You know what I mean? It's all transfer of power based on us not knowing who we are. So they're claiming.
But lies are not sovereign, number one.
Right.
Lies, truth is sovereign.
Right.
Lies and if their history based upon lies,
Then sovereignty is void.
Yeah.
Another thing is the peace of the tree of peace and friendship. That ties you to the common law. The Constitution is just common law, which is your culture, who you are. So that alone, if you even just say that, if you're a free man on the land, then they can't use that. You can use that, right?
I think that's you said it best was like last year or something. You know, he's saying the sovereign Lord would be sovereign Ali, right? Like, I'm not a sovereign, but the sovereign Lord would be Ali because we mentioned that.
You sovereign and you recognize. So there's no, if they say they don't know, it's not something that they can avoid having to discuss, having to look up, because everything's on the record for them and it's family. So it's not your responsibility at that point. Once you say no with Ali,
Not here to teach you.
not to that level. Not those things that are already written out. So you go look it up. Tell them go look it up. You know, because you know every few one of them, regardless of whoever it is gonna actually look it up. You know what I mean? If you're sincere about whether it's sincere with them, you know, you're gonna have them look it up. And that's where this movement is really, you know, growing in the minds of people who aren't just coming off the street, but people who are still in the uniform and in those rooms and in those places, especially in somewhere like Canaanland, you know, where people, they know they're not from here. They're not really deceiving themselves. Even if they try, they're not really deceiving themselves. Okay? And deep down, some of them even know who the originals are. So once you offer that piece of those gems and those knowledge, you know, some are gonna look past it, but some are gonna recognize it.
Silent if you like it not.
You know, if you like your hair, it's not good.
It's not optional. Well, like I said, this movement will not be recognized without either party being ahead.
Any questions or other comments?
So this whole thing again, it goes back to no neutrality saying, increase your faithfulness.
Mhm.
When you see like these actions and then those other people trying to tie us into the faithful ones into that activity.
Right.
So that's why the prophet said, again, increase your faithfulness, so you don't get caught like that. Because if you're really studying, all of that wouldn't even matter. But you're gonna present yourself, your friend.
Yeah.
So you're not really thinking about all that side stuff. You're going in full force with what you know.
Right. And it's with you know, like you're saying, the lessons that were granted to us, that, you know, we have a sure mind when we're moving forward. You know what I mean? Like you're saying, any type of side stuff, you catch those things. You know what I mean? I remember when we were going to, it's probably like, what was it? I think it was the thing when you guys were in court. With land racing, and we had the Black's Law. We had the Black's Law first edition. No, the Black's Law third edition. And one of the duty council, they were trying to, they don't want to talk to you guys because, you know, you're not using the right law and whatever. It's like, well, what law you guys use? And then she pulled out 7th or something like that, or 8th edition or something like that. We're like, yeah, like that's what you guys use. Like, how come you don't use 3rd edition? She's like, oh wow, you have one of those. Oh well, you know, my whatever they call it when they're under the judge, when they're under a judge before they're a lawyer or whatever. Like, oh yeah, my whatever gave me one of those. I have one at home. Like, so what the hell's that doing home? Like, I'm supposed to be here. Like, what do you mean? You're using 7, right? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's home. You know, because they already know. They already know what's up. They already know. You know, they set up the thing so you know, get certain things out of circulation, put certain things in circulation, and then whatever's in circulation, that's what it is. And there's nothing else there's no way that there's something else that you're gonna find that. Yeah, right. Conventional. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The college students.
Yeah. Edition, whatever edition. Yeah. Crazy.
Go back to what you read there with your when you got the response where the guy said people are going to seminars on YouTube for information. So if you're studying and they're testing you to see if you're firm, because if they have the information already, they won't know what to throw out there to see who is real.
Right.
So they're testing like nobody always said everybody will be tested. Who knows where everybody gets
everybody is on the road.
So then if the people have the information, wouldn't it be wise to say, if somebody's waking up, let's test them and see if they're real. If you're gonna fight us. Let's see if they're studying. Because they already know that the prophet says the ones that are true will be tested.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's why if you compete, then you're competent. But if you're just trying to think,
then you're incompetent. You'll see that easy.
Then we can play with it. Let's use it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's give them something that you want.
Right.
And then you're willing to whatever they want you to do.
Yeah.
Stay true. They know who's real. The real know who's real.
Yeah.
They see the real people come in, they know, like the prophet says. So I think we'll just keep studying and keep our eyes open.
Yeah.
so wow.
Noah, you had any stuff from Monday? Any update?
When was it? Last time we? No, from yeah, that's what they told us. Let me see again. After we're going through the introduction, you know, who is one, what is what?
Yeah.
Explanation and asking her to if she understands what I'm saying. She's trying to say that she don't have to answer me, but we're talking. Something like that. I see where, you know, she's trying to
And I tried to avoid not say too much now because I see where he said it.
Yeah.
Then she said, guess what we were to do is to get the disclosure, so there's a disclosure or whatever.
Yeah.
To go back another time, like child.
Right. Yeah.
And then she goes, is there any community or church?
So is there any organization or anything that you're a part of?
That you're a part of that you could donate something? I said, for what? Donate for what? Just donate something for, people that run into situation like you know, some. And I goes, the more signs them, donate. And then what of this farmer, she said, if you donate something, you don't even have to come back. I know something here will never happen. Forget about everything. Donate something. When the charity you want it.
Right. Yeah.
So then we gotta do is to get receipt.
Yeah.
So we couldn't come here and go back.
Right.
The Crown, is it the Crown? These recommended 200 billion.
All different places to go.
Red Cross.
Yeah. 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 Different organizations that you could.
I asked them more than once. So are you telling me this donation has nothing to do with what I'm here for? Nothing to do with it? Not like if you have anything you get away or something from something? She said no.
Yeah.
Just to help other people. And anyone you choose to donate.
Yeah.
So she asked me, and I said maybe 20 minutes I'll give it to them.
Yeah.
Yes. Anybody else? $2? I said, come on, $2 that I give to them. You can give more than $2.
Yeah.
So the $2. I said, okay, we give it 20 notes each.
And that's that.
That was that. And then they
I
said,
have to confirm though, because like some of it didn't make sense what they were saying.
yeah.
I found like when I was talking to the judge, it wasn't even a judge, it was a justice of the peace. I'm like, does that mean everything?
No, that was a judge.
Oh yeah, it was a
Yeah.
judge.
Yeah, the judge. And this time we only in a room with them. We wasn't in the crowd.
Yeah, there's no one else in the court besides us.
Or just you out there.
Yeah.
It's new market.
Yeah.
New market. So after that, I'm like, what does that mean? That this is gonna be dismissed on like facing merits and everything. And you see the crowns jump up quick, say it's everything dismissed, and then there's no direct accountability when you guys do this. You have to make a donation, and all the charges will be dismissed and withdrawn.
No direct accountability.
Yeah.
So last time you're like, I feel direct accountability.
You see, that's what I'm trying to say. And it says on the paper too. But we went into the direct accountability office, but where there's no direct accountability, we just made a donation, 20 notes each.
Yeah.
You say you fess up to it and they say, okay, well, do this community service.
Yeah. The community service cop out. Yeah. 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 Something like that. Yeah. Cause I think because that also means that it's not precedent or whatever. It's just off the books because you made a donation. Whatever. You're free to go.
We have a copy of the receipt, and our receipt has our appellation on it, not the extra one.
Yeah. Not the straw that they brought to court or whatever charging.
Even that when we went there and we're starting off, they're ready to call in the pager. They're like, "Oh, where's Norma Smith?" Then I'm like, "There's no Norma Smith. There's not whatever." You know what I'm saying? And the guy's ready to call in the pager.
He did.
Oh yeah, he did call. He called for Norma Smith, so I just walked back in. Say more than I was before. Telling them that there's no Norma Smith, and they're like, "Oh, we might have to issue a bench warrant for Norma Smith then or whatever." And after that, that's my dad. They started talking, saying like, "What is he telling? We say to them like, what are you guys doing?" Like, you know.
So today was there something? He was talking to state or something. They wanted to
Yeah. Bottom line. Anything. You also apply that.
After we finished, after I said and done, and the other day when we went to the mountain one, there was a more. You
Oh yeah. You was telling me, yeah. That's why we started doing this thing or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, when they leave, I give them a ride. I was ready to, so travel with us to a place where we wanted to drop them off.
Right.
And then when we look, it's the same place that I donated to.
Mm.
He's going to do his paperwork. So now I know when we have paperwork, I'm gonna go there, go file out my papers in that place.
Yeah.
Same place. They like a human.
John Howard.
Oh, like your friend.
Yeah, you go there and do it.
John
You
Howard.
get a document for free.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So hold on, this more, that's Captain?
No, that was Shaquille.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He was leaving the court.
Yeah, I see them walking out. I see someone in the front. I'm like, who's that? I didn't know who it was. So I just told my dad to go find out who he was. And he came and he was with us the whole court, through my whole court.
Yeah, remember him from the
I've never seen him.
I've seen him with a long time.
Yeah, a little while. Yeah, he's in one of them Drew Ali pictures, or two of them or something.
So I'm asking him to what happened. I'm from that. He said he's not with those guys, those captains.
Yeah.
He said he's not.
Yeah. You had a thing today?
There's always something.
There's always something.
He even said to us too, everything that has to do with bond, anything with bond, it clear off anything with bond.
When you say bond, you said York.
Eh?
York.
Yeah.
Because they knew that I had a case tomorrow with Peel, so that's why they said that.
Also, so everything was done.
Anything that's what York.
Okay.
Meat market and bond
Okay.
stuff. My Brampton stuff was separate.
It's a separate thing. Yeah. No. Is it 32? Charity? What you got? Now, any other questions?
I have court again September 11th, 9/11, at 9 a.m. at the same Brampton court. If anyone wants to call.
9/11.
9/11.
I picked the date too because it's so funny when you see them like when people asking for extra time or like an extra 2 weeks or something.
Yeah.
The judge is like, no, you can't do that. 3 weeks or 4 weeks is enough. When I was doing mine, I said like September 30th or something. And she didn't say no. She asked me why.
Yeah.
You know? I just made it easy. I just said that on purpose just to see what she would say.
Yeah.
You
You gotta feel them out. You gotta feel them out.
That's how you learn.
Yeah. You gotta feel them out.
I didn't want it to be that long anyways. I'd rather come back next week just to get it over with.
Come back
Everyone
fast.
else before me just didn't get a chance to do what they wanted to do. So I just said what I wanted to say just to see what happened.
Yeah.
So you do it.
Yeah.
Because even when they only tell them it's their date, they don't ask them. Like if they give them two.
And if they have somebody, they're representing them anyway, it seems like half the time it's, even if they have, it's up to that person.
Oh yeah, because
The council, or whoever.
they just stand behind their people or they're
Randy's going for that.
stand behind them. Now they say your name and they just push their face and say their name, I guess.
Has is there anything I haven't been in them plots in freaking long. Anything change as far as the call up, or because I remember they used to I remember one time they used to call everybody outside or whatever to find out if they're there first before they do
Last
everything.
time, one thing they did that I noticed a difference is that they have a sign-up sheet when you're inside the courtroom now.
Mm.
You walk in, I guess for everyone representing themselves.
Yeah.
Just put your name on a sign-up sheet so they know what order the prosecutor or whatever calls the name. So when I vote mine, I just put Nora L.B. X-Rel, everything.
Yeah.
She couldn't even pronounce the first name, the first application part. I just have to help her. Yeah. That was for the Brampton one, I think.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, we're helping, right?
But didn't you ask her to if she don't have your paperwork?
Pardon?
Was it long time when you asked if she don't have your paperwork?
Yeah, I asked the judge, she said she received my proclamations and everything.
Oh, for real? Okay.
Yeah, because I made sure I went to the Crown's office and whatever, and filed that from last time I was there.
Yeah.
Because they still never gave me a disclosure. So that's probably one of the reasons why.
Why you got disclosure and stuff?
Yeah, and they just gave me another date. She wasn't even a judge, it was a justice of the
Yeah,
peace.
yeah.
She said, I'm not touching this.
JP.
Yeah. Save another date, 'cause I can't do it.
JP.
And you even told her to, I want to make sure that when I come back, it's going to be a judge, not a justice.
Yeah, I would have said, what did she say? I answered, is it going to be a judge when I come back? I think she said maybe. I didn't think she said yeah.
She said if it's necessary or something. Something like that. Because technically, you telling him that I don't want to be talking to somebody like you when I come back.
Yeah.
This time that's the Brampton one, there's other people in the courtroom too. Like the courtroom was full that time.
Yeah.
Even some lady when we were in the line waiting to get disclosures, asking us if we're fryers and stuff.
Yeah, down top with her too. She understand what we're saying to her because she had a little bit of knowledge about the Shriners.
Yeah.
So
She probably an Eastern Star or something. She got her white fez at home. She knows what's up. She has the white fez at home. She has white fez. Any questions? You all right? All right. You had something, Kiba?
Yeah, it wasn't a question, just back to that Mead versus Mead. So
Yeah.
I read a little bit about it, but couple things bothered me about the how the judge was breaking down things to come to how he was gonna do his proceedings or rulings or whatever.
Right.
The last one says, paraphrasing, as a preliminary note, I will refer the person by their normal name, normal in quotation, except to illustrate various OPCA motifs and concepts. Therefore, in these reasons, I will omit spurious name forms, common titles, comma punctuation, and the like. So I looked up title, obviously, and isn't that important when it comes to law?
Yeah, if you're dealing with the competent jurisdiction, so
how could you exclude that?
Yeah, because they're not competent.
So couldn't that be a rebuttal for that need?
Yeah, that it's
outside of people with titles.
It's you can look at it as from our perspective is denationalization because we have titles.
Right.
So if you don't want me to go in there with a title, you're denationalizing me in order to have me in there.
That falls into the first plane of status, no?
Yeah. Status is the first issue. So they and then with the people who are there, if they're that same thing of the European the diversity issue, that if there's 2 Europeans in there, I don't care who's talking sovereign or whatever like that, you're done for. Because like Tess said, you're supposed to be on our boat. What do you mean you're not part of, like, what do you mean you're a free man on the land? You're not European. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? You're supposed to be European. You know what I mean? I don't care what you did. You know what I mean? We have our own way that we'll deal with you or not deal with you or whatever. You know? But when once you start getting into Superior Court and all these different Queen's Bench and all these different jurisdictions of quote unquote courts, you know that they're illegitimate when they do things like that. Oh yeah, no titles in here, or I don't know what X-relation means, or can you just give us your normal name and all this type of stuff? Like, what do you mean by normal name? Yeah, like, what do you mean normal? Yeah.
We're gonna educate people on you. Normal.
I don't want to say to one of them, if you don't know what I mean, because I asked asked him, you don't know what I mean? He said, no. I was gonna have to tell him, so you're not even fit to be where you are if you don't know what I mean.
Yeah, pretty much.
If you don't know what I mean in this where we are right now,
Yeah.
you don't know what I mean. You're not even fit to be where you are.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like you said, you're not exposing that.
Yeah. We
Taking
just
care of
just handling our stuff. You know what I mean?
Respond because I'm not here to teach you. I don't know how to say that. But
Yeah. But you know, it's those are the things that you just put out just so they know that I'm not incompetent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not my job to teach you law or whatever, but just so you know, improper persona X relation means whatever like that. But you know, I'm just saying, just so you don't think that you could pull stuff on me or whatever. You know?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, but
Yeah, also, how are they able to contract Moors into the court? Is it through birth certificate or
through some
through the Moor's name?
most times contract with the slave name. And then Moors are going there with their free name to tell them, no, I'm not that name. But most of the time it's because of a license, a birth certificate, bank card, something you had in your pocket that had that name on it, whatever. Because they can only deal with the all capital letters name.
So why are Moors carrying those instruments?
It might, like, for example, with
again, to I could answer that, you only have to carry, but because you did previously have the license and you give them the extradition to the license, then they go check whatever from the system to get all the information they want on the license or on the whatever other stuff. You don't even have to have it in your pocket. So they never take one from my pocket. No one they spell the name wrong too. So they never take one from the senior birthright. And they put both of them in the paper too.
Oh, yeah, so I probably did that with both.
And
I just want to
also,
get it over with. I didn't even say that.
and also there's under occupation, right? So all the businesses or the entities that we have to deal with are foreign. They're foreign entities, right? So we got to navigate. Right? There's foreign entities that are controlling all the different venues or certain things that we might need to maneuver and navigate in our own land right now because we're under occupation. So we're preserving our rights. Even if you didn't do it before, you do it after. But it's necessary if you need to function, or else there's no more businesses set up where we could have our own, per se, license or our own credit card, our own health card, right? We're going to their hospitals, right? Because they're setting up, it's all foreign entities setting up business that we gave them permission to set up, but now we forgot that we're the landlords, most of us, and so they're operating as the landlords, and that we have to ask permission for everything. So the more give up all those corporate documents or those documents that will have nothing to do with being a national, then it's more likely that more probably has to be in a shell or be in seclusion and not be able to really navigate and function day to day. A lot of them have children, right? And those certain instruments that are corporate or not really de jure, de facto instruments, it's helping you navigate. So in that process, the prophet said, like, don't give up none of those things under those names because you're still owed somewhat of inheritance or you're entitled to certain things behind those instruments, but just make sure you reserve your rights when you're navigating in that realm. There's
also a part of the proof that since they
we have our own documents and certain things, but not to say we're looking for recognition, but because they're the so-called power that be and they're kind of controlling certain things to a degree, they're not accepting those things and making it seem like what we were talking about earlier, like pseudo thing. Right. So until the nation fully wakes up
and takes back control, right? Because the people, that's what are really supposed to control their government. So until the people wake up and stop following everything every day, then that's the situation we're going to be in, right? Because there's 20 more trying to navigate with 3 national or Moorish documents, and then there's the next 80 more who don't know they're Moors really, and they're doing what the average person is doing, or what they're told to do, or they don't know what told them to be done. They're just following suit. So then it makes like, who are you guys? You guys can't say this. People look just like you guys, and they're doing the exact opposite. So what makes you guys different? So that's where the problem lies too, right? You could try to just navigate with those documents, but it's gonna be hard. I try to move around that level, but it's not easy. So their liberty is not as easy. Right? So you pick your battle, but preserving your rights is somewhat like your shield. You're able to protect yourself so that they try to bring that back on you. Say, well, you went in and did this, you're using this document and this document, using your corporate name, record, well, I reserve my rights under contract because I have no other choice right now. I'm in occupation. You guys are pretty much forcing me to do this. I tried to do it the right way, but I can't do it the right way because you guys are not right anyway, so it wouldn't even work.
So what is the head of the temple's position? Meaning that the world is saying that, yes, you're entitled to your nationality, right? So if you're exercising it or enforcing it and it is not recognized, then what is the temple's position with all these world bodies of government?
Well, it's perspective. It's perspective too, because
and again, does the temple have a seat among the nations? Because they're signed treaty, so there has to be some dialogue going on, right? Because you sign the treaty, you're there to the treaty holders. Are they holding these people accountable on the land?
yeah,
So
that's
the members can operate with these instruments.
yeah. But remember the idea of the recognition part is not on are we recognized? That's in the UN. So we're recognized. Problem is we're dealing with colonists, we're dealing with occupiers, we're dealing with people who they got chemtrails killing everybody right now. So they're on a certain mindset. What's our mindset at? You know what I mean? Is our mindset trying to prove something to them? No, our mindset is Noble Drawley said, be ourselves. The only problem is that we just started being ourselves. So it's an uphill battle. But if we would have followed from Noble Drawley's time to now being Moors, forget being all the other stuff that we were, we wouldn't be having no issues right now with anybody. Zero issues.
Whatever they've been doing it for a long time, and they're getting better at it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Every day.
Yeah.
It's because they know that their position is not the right position, so they're trying to secure that. They don't want to lose where they're at right
Whatever
now.
they got.
They're comfortable when they're and they're able to keep us at a certain level. So the fight that we have to fight is we have to go 10 times harder, but it's gonna take a little longer too, because like she said, we're just coming into this knowledge as far as say from the prophet's time, say like 90 years ago, from 1929, right? No, but from 1929 when certain things were finally established, and then we can talk about transition or whatnot. And from that point on,
Please go, all right. Floor.
so 90 years ago, the Moorish movement was bigger back then. So it's decreased in numbers, decreased in awareness to a certain level, and they've expanded, right? Because their mission is to like, okay, every year let's find something new to make sure you can keep them down, to make sure that we secure our position, make sure that we maintain what we have established already. Right, while we were just being Negro, black, and colored, and going along with whatever name that might have applied to us somewhat, but never really had any power in that name, or the name wasn't a functional name where things could change for us. But I'm pretty sure if you ask any more in here now, who's nationalized now and proclaim their nationality and exercise it and practice it, we're way in a better status than being Negro, black, and colored, and things have, like, different doors have opened to a certain extent, where we're able to maneuver and function even better, even though they still make it difficult and hard. Like I said for myself, like, I've been in the court system for 20 years plus, and I've only been conscious, aware more for maybe the past 10, 11 years. And I know for a fact that, with these policy enforcers and these so-called facto authorities, certain aspects have become a little more difficult, but just dealing with them like on a face-to-face basis, it's totally different. It's night and day. Like the respect level is different. The way they have to approach me and deal with me is totally different. Like, so I just know it's more or less a numbers thing, right? They have the numbers. They're sitting in the so-called seat of power. Everybody thinks that they're the authority and power, so they're just running with that, right? But like Francis just said too, like, we're not trying to really prove nothing to them, but we know who we are. So every day we're just still being who we are, and then in the hope the other Moors are gonna wake up and know who they are too, right? And then eventually the paradigm will change. A lot of us want to see a change in our time, but sometimes it's not meant for your immediate generation.
So that too.
It's for the next,
That too.
Like, we'll keep doing what we're doing now. Next 100 years, it's gonna be way better. Right?
Because the way we get defeated or overrun by them is not thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
So one of the first things people look at when we start exposing to what's up, they make it look as if it's gonna hard, it's gonna hard. What are you gonna do that? That seems like they have it so like this so long now. But it's not so long. It's like I always said it's few grandmothers ago.
Yeah.
Great grandmothers ago.
People talk, and that's the other thing. People say, sorry to cut it, but they say 400 years of slavery, but Truali told us slavery started in 1776 and ended in 1865. So what are these people talking about 400 years?
Yeah. So if that's not there, then it is still going on.
Yeah,
right
now, but the legal slavery, the mental slavery started from 1776 to 1865. Now, slavery is by consent.
Mm-hmm. It's not by consent.
It is by consent.
Yeah, you have to agree.
Now, as you know what, it's by contract.
Yeah, which is consent.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
You agree to it. It's an agreement.
And it's the point of not over, because that
without disclosure. Yeah. Without disclosure. Because most individuals are in contract with them, they've never been given disclosure and they are unaware.
Okay, but one quick thing about the contract. If it's an adhesion contract, it's not a contract. Just like if it's an improper law, it's not a law. Law doesn't require punishment. The law, any true law has its own retribution. That's why there's only 7 legal laws, 7 universal laws. So the contract, when you're contracting with somebody outside of your nation, if the contract is void, you're not liable.
What the people are held accountable with these contracts.
You're not liable. Just like he wasn't liable for the 12,000.
Because right now, if you're driving out there, if you're traveling with the instrument and they pull you over, and you haven't violated any law, but they're charging you.
Yeah, but that's under force of arms, though.
That charge might not have any backing.
That's under force of arms.
That's force of arms. That's not.
That's not law. Why they pulled somebody over or whatever. That's because they're an occupier. Why they did that. It's like the Sikhs. Sikhs don't get tickets for not wearing a helmet on a motorbike. Never. No, but they got it's the law that you need to wear a helmet on a bike. But they don't have no helmet and they don't get tickets.
No. Well, and that's the law of man. That's not the divine law, right? So the Sikhs, they use their authority to trump that.
Which is the same thing that we're doing. which is the same thing that we're doing. The only difference is that they're foreigners and we're from here.
So that's what I was talking about, like with the authority. Like, they don't want us to give up what they have, because then they have to wait for us to tell them where to go or what to do then. Right? Like, were we allowed to stay there then, or do we have to go back where we came from before? Or where are you guys putting us? Right? They don't want to be in that position. So they're gonna give all the other nations who are not indigenous to this land every so-called privilege or right that could accommodate them, but as long as, like, okay, you guys are happy, you guys don't make too much noise, right? But don't involve yourself with these people either, because these are the ones you gotta make sure
don't know
at a certain level. Right? So the owners, right, and then keep perpetuating the idea that we're property, like we're slaves.
Which is perpetuated by our own.
Yeah, exactly.
Because our own that pushed 400 years of slavery or whatever, and then that just happened this year. They've been saying 400 years of slavery for like 20 years. Just 2019 is 400 years of slavery, but they say 1619. They've been saying 400 years of slavery, but that's not something that is a standard everywhere. That's only in that racehorse mentality of the Negroes, and anybody who wants to keep the Negroes in servitude. And then, like you're saying, or like Yasun was saying, we might have certain instruments that came from them, but we know how to live within contracts. So we're not the same treatment that I get given a license. Next guy is not going to get that treatment because I know how to live within that. You know what I mean? Like that's why I put ex-relation on there, right? So when we say ex-relation, we're using that birth certificate or whatever name just because of information that we have on it, because that can't talk, but we got all the info for it. And you want that to talk, just like the divorce said, ain't no Norman here. What are you talking about? There's no Norman here to talk for what you want. Oh, okay, fine. And then they get all their receipt that says Bay on it or whatever. That's not who they took to court. How come the receipts on when they put the Bay on the receipt?
And they're gonna send me a card to a thank card that's gonna come here.
Right.
And then this location, maybe location.
Right. It's even with all this stuff. They got They got their letter. They got their letter to the straw name who they're dealing with. but the envelope's to Cujo. So who are they? Like who are you dealing with really? And then if they acknowledge that there's somebody called this, then I'm being this all day. Forget what you guys say on this paper. I can care less what you guys say on this paper. You just acknowledge that there's somebody named Cujo that your law office is dealing with. So don't tell me nothing about birth certificates and licenses and all this other name stuff. Because I have evidence right here. I have evidence right here from you guys that you guys know exactly who I am. You guys know exactly about nationality and all that.
One is private, one is business.
Right.
One is public, one is private.
Right.
Because public is business.
And the public can't talk for itself.
Can't talk for itself, but they're using that to engage.
Engage in, right.
The contract in their thing.
Right.
So there has to be a solution to prevent them from engaging us with what they have.
With the instruments.
Why does there have to be a solution to prevent them from engaging us? We live on one planet, bro. We did this already. We brought them to Europe. We said, okay, this place is far, it's cold, they're not gonna come in, they're not intelligent enough to build anything. And then some people came and showed them certain things, and they built the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire came and waged war against the Carthaginians. Brother, there's no, that's not what we do here. We're not looking for a solution to be away from them. We're looking to be so on point about what we're about that
they don't even bother with us.
They don't bother with us because it's not like there's no other advantage that they would have that would give them the bravery to come at us. You understand? So the end
like it takes a certain. It's pretty much what you're saying, but in a different way, right?
Yeah. But it doesn't involve them. It doesn't involve interaction.
Yeah, it's about us.
It's for us.
It's about us.
So if that's what your question is, then that's the solution.
Like namely speaking, like all the black people woke up today and said, "Yo, we're gonna do things on this level and know where we came from and know how we have to maneuver," and then started studying, and then we're all on the same page. So what they did wouldn't matter. They would just disappear actually.
And they know that. They would look and say, "Oh, is that okay? It's fine. Okay." Like there was no talks, no argument, no conversation. Like they're ready for that.
But you still can't take that away from them. You gotta give them credit because they have our people so distracted that we, the littlest, most stupidest thing will take most of our day and be consumed with. And not care about anything, you know? Right? It's amazing, you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of work to be done.
There's a lot more. You got your reading? Yeah. You can just get it in the ethers and we'll carry on next week with it.
I don't know.
What chapter?
Basically what I'm hearing, enough people are not involved in the movement.
Yeah, and there's enough outside of the movement doing things to slow it down. Who are like us, our own people, right? And so it's not just numbers but energy too. You know what I mean? Like we were saying here, it's quality over quantity. Because we'd like to see the whole place packed and full, but that time will come when it comes. But up until then, it's like just so many examples that you've probably seen just today of if you stand on your square and stand on your thing, even if you're on your own, when you have the right mentality and the right energy and you have the confidence and you have the diligence, you get the result that the true law dictates, right? Because true law always has its effect. True law will always have its recompense. Right? False law may not get what it says it's going to get. But true law always gets what it's supposed to get.
Islam.
Chapter 46. Holy instruction from the prophet, the insufficiency of knowledge.
443.
43 in the smaller
Page 101 in the pocket word.
Oh, page 101.
Yeah.
And the big one is page 65. 53.
You have the other.
I might have a different one.
Yours 53 is not body more common.
Should be the same chapter.
Right. Chapter 43, right?
Yeah.
Only instructions from the prophet, the insufficiency of knowledge. If there is anything lovely, if there is anything desirable, if there is anything within the reach of man that is worthy of praise, is it not knowledge? And yet, who is it that attaineth it? The statesman proclaimeth that he hath it. The ruler of the people claimeth the praise of it, but findeth the subject that possesseth it. Evil is not requisite to man, neither can vice be necessary to be tolerated. Yet how many evils are committed by the connivance of the laws? How many crimes committed by the decree of the council? But be wise, O ruler, and learn, O thou that are to command the nations. One crime authorized by thee is worse than the escape of 10 from punishment. When the people are numerous, when thy sons increase about thy table, sendest thou them not out to slay the innocent, and to fall before the sword of him whom they have not offended? If the objects of thy desire demand the lives of a thousand, sayest thou not, I will have it. Surely thou forgettest that he who created thee created also these, and that their blood is as rich as thine. Sayest thou that justice cannot be executed without wrong? Surely thine own words condemn thee. Thou who flattereth with false hopes the criminal that he may confess his guilt, art not thou unto him a criminal? Or art thou guiltless because he cannot punish it? That's exactly what we're talking about. Right? When thou commandest to the torture him whom is but suspected of ill, darest thou to remember that thou mayest rack the innocent? When thou commandest to the torture him who is but suspected of ill, darest thou to remember that thou mayest rack the innocent? If thy purpose answered by the event, is thy purpose answered by the event? Is thy soul satisfied with his confession? Pain will enforce him to say what is not, as easy as it is, and anguish hath caused innocence to accuse herself. That thou mayest not kill him without cause, thou dost worse than kill him. That thou mayest prove if he be guilty, thou destroyest if innocent. O blindness to all truth, O insufficient of the wisdom of the wise. Know when thy judge shall bid thee account for this, thou shalt wish 10,000 guilty to have gone free, rather than one innocent to stand forth against thee. Insufficient as thou art to the maintenance of justice, how shalt thou arrive at the knowledge of truth? How shalt thou ascend to the footstep of her throne? As the owl is blinded by the radiance of the sun, so shall the brightness of her countenance dazzle thee in thy approaching. If thou wouldest mount unto her throne, first bow thyself at her footstool. If thou wouldest arrive at the knowledge of her, first inform thyself of thine own ignorance. More worth is she than pearls, therefore seek her carefully. The emerald and the sapphire and the ruby are as dirt beneath her feet, therefore pursue her manhood. The way to her is labor. Attention is the pilot,
that must conduct thee into her port. But weary not on the way, for when art arrived at her, the toil shall be to thee for pleasure. Say not unto thyself, behold, truth breedeth hatred, and I will avoid it. Dissimulation raises friends, and I follow it. Are not the enemies made by truth better than the friends obtained by flattery? Naturally, doth man desire the truth, yet when it is before him, he will not apprehend it. And if it is forced itself upon him, he is not offended at all at it. The fault is not in truth, for that is amiable, but the weakness of man beareth not its splendor. Wouldst thou see thine insufficiency more plainly? View at thy devotion. To what end has religion instituted? But to teach thee thine infirmities, and to remind thee of thy weakness, to show thee that from heaven alone art thou to hope for good. Doth it not remind thee that thou art dust? Doth it not tell thee that thou art ashes? And behold, repentance is it not frailty? When thou givest an oath, when thou swearest, thou wilt not deceive. Behold, it spreadeth shame upon thy face, and upon the face of him that receiveth it. Learn to be just, and repentance may be forgotten. Learn to be honest, and oaths are unnecessary. The shorter follies are, the better. Say not therefore to thyself, I will not play the fool by halves. Yet he that heareth his own faults with patience shall reprove another with boldness. He that giveth a denial with reason shall suffer a repulse with moderation. If thou art suspected, answer with freedom. Whom should suspicion affright except the guilty? The tender of heart is turned from his purpose by supplication. The proud is rendered more obstinate by entreaty. The sense of thine insufficiency commanded thee to hear. But to be just, thou must hear without thy passion. Islam.
That one's a deep one. That one is insufficiency of knowledge. Yeah. Right in line. Right in line.
That's just like where you're talking about too, right? Your competence, right? Not able to compete due to pretty much a lack of knowledge.
Lack of knowledge, yeah.
And if there is anything lovely, if there's anything desirable, if there is anything within the reach of man that is worthy of praise, is it not knowledge? And yet, who is it that attaineth it?
This one's a good one. It says, number 3, it says, evil is not requisite to man. Right? Right there. You know?
Right, it's a good one. Send that in through it.
The whole chapter.
Yeah. Very thought, yeah.
Another part said, if you have honesty, you don't need to take an oath.
Mm-hmm.
Sincere, you need to take an oath.
Right.
Right, so they didn't tell them straight, like, I don't care what your designation, what office you're holding.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about, I'm right, and if you're trying to do anything to me, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, no, yeah, you can lock me up. Yeah, you can lock up the body by threat, duress, and coercion. And then even that, right, about innocent admitting or is not willing to be guilty.
When thou givest an oath, when thou swearest, thou wilt not deceive. Behold, spread shame upon thy face, and upon the face of him that receiveth it. Because like saying it's not you're saying not necessary. I know I'm right now, so why do I have to even prove that to you? Every time I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna lie to you. that should be forgiven.
Honestly speaking.
Right? And then so learn to be just, and repentance may be forgotten. Learn to be honest, and oaths are unnecessary.
So what do you think of 27? Sorry.
There's if thou art suspected, answer with freedom. Whom should suspicion of right, except the guilty. Because it's pretty much saying like, if you're not guilty or not, then you have nothing
to worry about.
Right? Because it's saying
only the guilty should be afraid.
You're accusing me of operating or driving without a license, but I wasn't driving. I was traveling on my land, so I don't have to like be afraid to speak for myself, to defend myself. Really, right? Because I'm not guilty enough. So only the guilty is afraid or should worry about something. So it's like saying, whom should suspicion of right except the guilty? Right?
Then you can look at it too. If thou art suspected, answer with your rights. Take freedom of answer with the law.
Which is somewhat, it's kind of different from what they tell you, but then again, it's coming from them when they say
innocent until
removing the other rights from the side. Anything you say you can't be used, can will be used against you. So you're thinking, again, that slavery mentality that if slave master comes and says something positive, go with it, run with it. If they come and say something negative, okay, it's slave master there now, so whatever.
Yeah.
But if they say something positive, oh, that's the trick.
Yeah.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say, you can't move to the all right, you're gonna say nothing. Well, that's default.
That's acquiescence.
That's acquiescence, right?
Because it's like, what they should say in that too is anything you say can or will be used against you or for your benefit.
Yeah. Exactly. That's the caveat that you gotta know.
You have to add that for yourself.
Right. So they're not there to tell you that.
Right, and they're not there for your benefit, so they're not gonna have that.
Yeah, right.
But that's there. That's part of the process. That's part of the reality. And that's not even their process. That's just life. That's just reality, existence. Like if something was said, yeah, they could lie about it, but at the end of the day, lies compound and bundle themselves up. We all know that.
I can say something good before you say whatever. So, like for example, like I got kidnapped and they charged me for marijuana possession, right? And from the time of my first interaction with them to the time I'm going to their court or whatever to deal with it, on the threat harassment portion, okay, I'm the corporate name on the straw. But I've maintained from the beginning that I'm not that, but if you want me to be that, I'll be that. I have some focus in my help. So that's documented now. So me not saying that, would have, now they could try to associate me with the thing. From the jump I maintained on this person to right now, this actual person. So who are you guys charging? Why am I still here? So based off of that, they drop it because it's like, well, clearly in the officer notes, you keep saying
you're suing in the notes. Yeah.
Right. So like that was to my benefit. Like if I just assumed position and never said nothing now, and then wait till I get to court to claim who I am, to claim who I am, or whatnot, or let them know who I am, my status. They'll be like, no, your track record, you never said that here before. Like, it is.
And that's what they do too. They're gonna go to the police report or whatever and say, what's in the report? It says you assume. What do you want?
Yeah. How, so when we're maintaining that we're charging the straw name, how could we be still charging this man? They have to just throw it out and pretend it's just being thrown out for whatever their reasons are. Right?
Yeah. But we know that it's because
it's the same thing with mine. They have both names. The straw and we put something like that. You put the straw and put it
or AKA or something.
And
Those are
those are the eyes and ears, you know, for the corporation. So it's like, it's already, you know, if they come to you, then you know that they want something from you. And if they want something from you, then those are the senses. Those are where you can give them the information and tell them to leave you alone or not. Right? As opposed to looking at them like this is an agent or well, it's an agent, but it's an officer, or this person is this or that. And that's just a record keeper. All the gun, badge, hat, everything that this person is just a record keeper.
You know, what I'm hearing, everything that I heard, it goes back to what this brother said in the beginning, is that we do not own things. So we're always engaging in what they have conquered and occupying on our land, right? So I think a big part of it goes back because most of us, we had these concrete places that they create. We have not claimed, put any claim to any land. So we don't have any land.
But even if we had land,
Huh?
even if we had land, you still need tractors and all that stuff to
yeah.
do all. So we could have all the land that we want, but without the mechanisms to set up the infrastructure, we might as well use what we got right here. We might as well stand up and at least have some type of access to what it is that we have right now, and then have the future generations be the ones that get the land, get the whatever, and
Like, so it's like,
right?
we set up an infrastructure for them. Whatever they're using, whatever models they're using to do whatever they're doing, is from what we taught them. So that's why it's so foolproof on a level. Right? You know what I mean?
I mean, of course you should use a tractor because we invented the tractor.
It's our
Of
stuff.
course you're gonna use a washing machine. We invented a washing machine.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the Moorish
So
mentality.
right now, we might have to go, quote unquote, ask NASA to use it because they're controlling it. But really and truly, it's ours. So
It's still ours. We're still the owner.
we could
Yeah.
use it and do the right things with it, then that's what we're gonna do.
Then why not do that?
Right.
So we can get the Fiat and distribute them and get the tractor.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Because in
Yeah.
reality, Moors live in civilization. And we don't really live in the bush like that. We partly live in the bush and partly in civilization. And the Moorish Empire was the empire that the people who were living in civilization respected and protected the people who were living in the bush. Now they want you to think, oh well, you gotta, if you're
Off the grid.
you gotta be off the grid if you want to be a real African and you don't know what it's like in the bush life and this and that, and the white man belongs to the city and the city's, no man, they built that. No. We designed and built the White House. We designed and built Washington, D.C. We built the biggest boats to travel the water. We figured out that the Gulf Stream runs from West Africa to the Caribbean. We've been here. We've been coming here back and forth, and they only figured it out 500 years ago. There's a river in the ocean. And people today still don't even know there's a river in the ocean. Yeah, if you're not getting on a plane and you're taking a boat, no matter where you're coming from, you want to get the river first, then you take the river across. That's the 401. Like you're not taking city streets to get from the West End to Scarborough.
Yeah.
You're getting on the 401. Everybody's getting on the 401. Even if you have to wait while you're in the 401, you're getting on the 401.
Still going on. You have to wait.
You don't have to wait on the Gulf Stream. It's not like you're gonna get on the Gulf Stream and there's gonna be boats piled up and all.
8 a.m.
You see what I'm saying? But the Gulf Stream only starts in West Africa and it only ends in the Caribbean. There's no variation, it didn't change. That's what it is. That's ours by nature. Never mind the things we invented and created. Right? It's all us.
Yeah. There's last few questions.
Finding Nemo, didn't they?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. That's right. They're just moving, swimming, they're just schooling, they're driving, and all of a sudden, whoosh, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
But that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what Mansa Musa told the Pharaoh. He said, my brother sent his ships, and the last ship of the 300 came back, and the captain was tripping because he's like, all the other 299 ships got to a certain spot and they just disappeared. So it's like, I got scared. He said, I told you, go and don't come back, go west and don't come back until you reach land. He said, yeah, I know he said that, but I
He
didn't know
says,
where. I didn't know where he was going. I didn't know what was happening.
All right, no problem. Take care.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, but Abu Bakr knew that that's what's supposed to happen. So he said, all right, don't stop stressing. Get your ship ready. And then another 3,000 ships, plus 300 that were already gone. 299, and we're going to go there. Because that's supposed to happen. It's a river in the ocean. Once you're in that river, you're not winding up anywhere else but the Caribbean.
And then from there, it's easy to remain like.
It's gonna take you. That's how silly it is. People want to argue about Moors and like if Moors have been here, like forget about anything else, technology, anything. You get on a friggin' inner tube and get in the Gulf Stream, you're gonna end up dead, deflated tube, but your body's gonna be in the Caribbean.
Islam. Yeah, man.
So if you don't say anything from the moment you're detained till whenever, what happens? If you reserve your right to be quiet because you're innocent until proven guilty, so
then,
why would you say anything?
Yeah, so then they'll just wait until you get to be heard.
Remember, what is innocent?
Not guilty.
Not knowing.
Okay. So you're not knowing until proven guilty.
Is this one right here?
I don't know anything. You don't know anything? You don't even know your status? Okay, all right. Let's go.
Yeah, well, we're using a certain context, right?
Yeah.
Oh, he's so innocent. You know, like a
Sure.
child. Not in the sense at all. In no sense, yeah. You know, so
That's why you don't plead as more. Because whether guilty or innocent, you're still guilty. Because you're admitting the jurisdiction. Islam more.
I heard it. I've been Islam 4 times. You never came in Islam the whole time. When you said it, the back of my head at the same time.
Oh yeah, that was the last one.
No, don't bother me, bro. You're an open book, bro. You got the open book. Read many times over.
Islam Moors. We're good.
Islam
Islam Moors. Peace and love, Moors. Let's close out so Omar could go home. It's been a long day today. Face the east, 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe. Father of love. Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector. My guide. And my salvation. By night and by day. To His holy prophet. Abu Jawali. Islam. Ashe. So let it be. Islam Moors. Peace and love.
He was coming to some realization. So, sure.